Hi and welcome everyone, Friar Tuck here. This is my epoch. Okay, so I'm at Coffee Emporium, my favorite coffee shop, as long as they decide not to grind any more beans. Um, but anyways, I can get a large daily brew, which gives me like a selection of 4 different coffees for like $2.50. You pay like $3.50 for a small at Starbucks. So, I mean, a hell of a deal, and that's part of the reason why I like it. But anyways, what we're going to be talking about today is the root cause of homelessness. Okay, but before I get into that, I kind of want to set the stage for you. Part of the reason why I've come to this conclusion and I'm saying what I'm about to say is because of the research that I'm doing on an article in which I'm writing, and I'm going to be doing a video on, which I expect to be released on Tuesday. Now, all the links to some of the stuff that I'm going to be saying will be in that article, so you can go over to hobotuck.com and subscribe, and then that way, when that newsletter comes out, or that blog post comes out, you get a copy of it, and you get to also go through and read a lot of the same articles that I did to be able to come to the conclusion, because I'm going to be saying some things that are just going to be baffling you. Okay, and so let's talk about what's really going to help with homelessness. You can have a place, somebody else is going to have to pay for it unless you have a job. So in order to be self-sustaining and to be able to truly end homelessness, not only do you have to provide a house, but you also have to provide the job. Okay, so those are two of the most important things that you need to have to be able to end homelessness. But let's talk about the labor market. Let's talk about what's really going on in the labor market. Now, there was an article that came out by Glenn Beck, and he was reading an article by somebody else talking about how from 2009 to I think about 2020, the foreign-born workers gained 656,000 jobs, whereas native-born workers lost 1.2 million jobs. That's not including the additional workers to the population, because every year you've got new workers turning 18 that are graduating high school, that are going out into the workforce, that are going to college, and you also have a certain segment that are also retiring. But you have this cycle of jobs, okay? And one of the most disturbing things that I was reading is that the way that our corporate elite look at the labor force is that you and I, we are just, we're pig feed. That's the easiest way to put it. Okay, we are not the most sought after workers. Okay, what the most sought after unskilled workers are these foreigners. Okay, but the thing is they look at these foreigners and they go, they will never be able to do anything that is like super skilled or anything else like that, because they just don't understand our customs and the way that our culture works. But as far as unskilled labor, like construction, landscaping, cleaning, and many more. And plus now their 50,000 workers are being hired by Tyson, that are migrants. Okay, so this is part of the reason why the native born worker is not real, is getting hammered. Okay, it's not just being a white male anymore. It's not just being a straight white male anymore. It's more like you were born here, so therefore you are our second choice, not our first choice. Okay, especially when it comes to the unskilled labor market. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Think of it like this. Okay, as a native born worker, you have rights. You also know that you need to make a livable wage. You also understand the laws and the customs, and you can kind of slack off. Whereas a foreign born worker, they're used to making like what they make in a week, they're used to making in a year. Okay, and so therefore they send it home. They don't really care, but they're being used as pawns because they're grateful for their job, unlike your native born Americans who are like, man, I need to be able to do something better than what it is that I'm doing. Okay, and so therefore that creates a demand or a preference. A friend of mine that was having a conversation with me, we were talking about the difference between the white slaves and the black slaves during the slave trade, or excuse me, the Irish slaves and the black slaves, and that the black slaves were more sought after because it cost a lot more to be able to bring them to the Americas. Whereas because the King of England was paying his war debt, and all the Irish people could keep was their potatoes, a mother would sell her child for a sandwich into slavery, and at least the child got to live or got to exist. Okay, and so therefore, they were willing or that's what made the Irish slave less valuable. okay? Because the black slaves cost more to bring in versus the white slaves. You eat a sandwich and you own them for the rest of your life. I mean, that's not really hard, okay? But that was how bad it was back then, okay? And so now, in that same sense, you apply that same logic to what's going on between foreign-born workers and native-born workers. Okay, the Department of Treasury has determined that it takes, for every 1% of immigration, it decreases wages by 0.2%. So if you have 10% immigration, then that means that you are dropping the wages by 2%. And if you're doing 10% every year, that means you're doing a 2% drop every year. So now everything is going up, but your wages are going down. But yet, you, in order to be able to afford a home, to be able to afford a place to live, you need to be able to have a job, and not just any job, but a job that's going to give you enough money to be able to pay your rent, to pay your utilities, to pay a car note, to pay for insurance, things like that. You should be able to make enough to be able to at least cover those basics. Your cell phone, things like that, because these are expectations and requirements in our modern society. But yet, our ruling elites, our corporate elites, look at you and me as, well, we're that Irishman being sold for a sandwich versus the cost that it takes to get these people over the border and the amount of sacrifices they had to make to be able to come get what it is that they got. Okay, and so there are actually studies that say that it could go as high as 0.3 and 0.4% if you look at some other factors as far as immigration. Not only that, you have the automation of the workforce. You have advanced robotics, artificial intelligence. So that's taking even a lot of the skilled jobs to where you are now, unless you can design, build, and maintain a digital infrastructure, you are no longer a valuable worker, because the way that the ruling elite see it is that we, as the native-born workers, we're supposed to have all the skills, and which is a good assumption to have. But the reality is that most Americans are stupid. The average IQ is somewhere around 85. There are plenty of people in this country that go take the ASVAB that can't even score, which means that they are basically retarded. There's the intelligence level in this country is atrocious, and it's getting worse, not better. Because the thing is we are valuing the bullies, we are valuing the cool kids and the kids that are the class clowns, while we take those that are the smart ones and we kick them, we bully them, and we stuff them in lockers and all kinds of things like that. And so therefore, you're saying that we need to be skilled workers, but then most of your population is unskilled, so most of your population is just useless to begin with. Okay, and this is just something to consider and to think about. Is that in a lot of ways, if you really think about it, it's a new form of slavery, and it's willful slaves, willful serfs that will come and work the land for us, the locals, in the same way that Rome had it. And I think that Rome did this as well, is that if you were not a Roman citizen, then you were basically a second-class citizen, and therefore you had to go and work for the Romans. Well, this in the same way is the way that our ruling elites, at least in the corporate side, this is kind of how they see the world and how they see us moving forward. But yet again, we as a society refuse to sit back and understand what's being put in front of us and decide to do it our own way, going completely against the grain, and then therefore we're creating these problems. So as long as the native-born worker is not a valued worker, as long as a native-born worker has to compete with and is considered a replacement worker for the unskilled foreign-born workers, the average American and our wages will never go up to be able to end homelessness. So this starts all the way at the corporate level, at the policy level. that again, in my opinion, if you're following the balancing the ball and some of the things I'm saying, you'll understand that it's almost like homelessness is by design, because it's not until the rest of the world decides, oh, they don't want to come here anymore because they ravaged our country, that us as native born workers therefore become valuable. And at that point in time, are you really going to want to go out there and work for somebody that thought that you were less than dirt, that thought that you were a second class citizen compared to somebody that just walks across the border and says, I need political asylum, I'm here as a refugee? I mean, come on, think of it. And then you wonder why so many people are dropping out of the workforce. Okay, and this directly correlates to being able to sustain your housed individuals, because without a job, without a job that has a decent wage, even skilled jobs now don't even pay decent wages. You will not be able to afford a house, and so therefore, as long as you are a replacement worker, your likelihood to be to be homeless is definitely going to go up exponentially. Especially the more migrants that we have come in here, is going to be the more likely that you and your unskilled labor and is going to go away, because they don't want you. They want these people that are grateful, not the people that are complacent. Okay, so you guys know how to help the channel, become a subscriber, all that cool stuff. Everything else is down in the description. Thanks for watching. And if you're going to leave me a tip in my tip jar, please come over to my website and do it there, not in PayPal. That way I want to do a test run for anybody that wants to leave me a tip in my tip jar. So if you do it, please leave a message. That way I can keep an eye on it. If there's an issue, I can always refund it back to you. So anyways, thanks for watching. See you in the next video.